Hello, for my data visualization project, I decided to break down the gamer profiles. I wanted to identify the characteristics of the various gaming levels that the participants answered when they answered the question of what sort of gamer are you. So this was one metric that they were either, never played or played a lot, but I wanted to figure out what exactly made a hardcore gamer, or someone who just considered themselves a casual gamer. So I started by looking at age. This was pretty consistent across the board, where you were between 19 and 20 years old. The first place I saw a difference was the gender. So those who hardly ever played video games were predominantly female, and those who predominantly played video games were male. And this was the first place where you kind of saw a correlation between the type of gamer and another metric. Another place where you see one is the amount of time spending playing games. So I looked at those who stated they spent more than 2 hours or more playing games a day, and then broke that down into the percentage. And so as you can see, all the hardcore gamers, they play at least, more than 2 hours a day. And then you go down to the hardly ever, and you're right about 3% of those stated they do. So this is kind of another area where you could start to see and form what that veteran, regular, hardcore, what that end user looked like. I also looked at willingness to spend money on video games. Since this was mobile focused, you can play a lot of mobile apps, but if you kind of want to get those extra perks, you can spend some money on there. And again, this is another place where you could start to define and shape what these users look like. So your hardcore gamers, all of them are spending money per month on video games, all the way down to never and hardly ever. You're right around that 3 to 5% are actually spending money on games per month. So these were kind of all things I expected across the board, and you could see you have a male who spends more than 2 hours a day playing video games and spending his resources on these games. You could see why they would define themselves as anywhere from a regular to hardcore gamer. One question I did find out, and I wanted to see if there's anything there, was the stress level of these gamers. So there's a question: do you feel stressed out when you're unable to complete a level? Initially, I thought that the stress level would increase as the gaming level increased, but this really wasn't so. So if we just looked at the no statistic, they do not get stressed out, we can see it starts to decline all the way down to casual users. And casual and regular users stated that they do tend to get stressed out sometimes, or quite often, when they're playing. And the more I thought about this, I believe it's because they're kind of in that middle ground where they care more about gaming than those who never play, but they don't have the skill level of hardcore and veteran gamers. So they may feel like they should be able to complete an objective or levels more frequently than their skill set actually can or allows them to. So I could see a frustration level sinking in there. And another way I kind of wanted to see, after looking at that graph, it surprised me. I wanted to look at another metric that could potentially tell me why the stress levels were like that. So I looked at how many times you would try a level before you end up paying to pass that level. And we kind of see the same trend here, where you have higher levels on both ends of the spectrum, but in that middle ground where you have someone caught in between the hardly ever plays and plays 5 hours a day, you see they are less willing to keep trying before they pay. This could correlate with that stress level and the fact that they're failing. They don't want to keep failing, so they end up paying the money. And when you go back to willingness to pay, you have those regular payers, almost 80% of them spending money. You have almost 60% of them spending money on games per month. So this was what I found. I was able to determine, just looking at the data, that your gamers are males who spend more than 2 hours a day playing these games and like to allocate their money to them, and they do it with a fairly low stress level and do it for entertainment. Thank you for the presentation.